The meeting come to order. I assume so. She knows all about it. So, can we approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which Liz, I know you have prepared in detail?
Motion approved.
Thank you very much. And thanks again. Liz is really doing yeoman's job on those minutes. Aren't easy.
Do you want to second it?
I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, new members, Mark is here. Congratulations, we're delighted to have you.
Thank you.
And Michaela, who has been with us a few times, is now officially with us,
Yes,
correct?
Yeah, both.
So we're assuming she'll be here, and we welcome you both and delighted to have a full complement. Liz, you want to, actually going to make a slight change in the agenda and let Mary Beth talk to us about your ideas, and then Jane, we'll go to you.
I always like to hear Mary Beth's ideas.
We always like to hear Mary Beth's ideas.
You want to come up? Or-
Yeah, come up,
Bring your
come
chair
up.
up?
Bring your chair up.
Hey, I'll sit here. You can sit right here.
And for those who don't know, well, you're in charge.
No, you go, no, you're in charge.
Well,
you're in charge.
you want to introduce? Oh, that's right. Okay.
Okay.
Mary Beth.
Yes.
Is a select person?
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Mitz. I'm a select board member in the town of Lenox. I am also the chairman of our Affordable Housing Trust in
And that's
Lenox.
Massachusetts?
Lenox, Massachusetts. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed.
I think they're next door.
Yes.
Anyway, we're delighted to have you and to share ideas and hopefully get more collaboration.
That would be outstanding. So our trust has been in existence since 2010. This past year, we were able to get 2 owner-occupied housing units on our subsidized housing inventory. We did that by purchasing 2 homes that were recently rehabilitated by a local developer. We put a deed restriction on each home for 30 years in order to get people who live, work, or have children that go to school in Lenox the ability to move in at an extremely underwritten rate. And they're in houses. We have 2 families with 4 children in 2 homes in Lenox now, which is terrific. That was our goal.
Are they owners or renters?
They're owners. They're owners. So we also have, we've been experimenting with and looking into the Attorney General's abandoned housing initiative. This was an initiative started, I believe, about 4 to 6 years ago, something like that. I think Maura Healy was instrumental in starting this particular program, and whereby homes are either taken over due to severely deferred maintenance. Perhaps the home is abandoned. Perhaps there's someone living in it who's had an unfortunate incident and has moved along. It goes into receivership, and I know that Construct has participated in this program as a receiver, rehabilitated the home, brought it up to code, and then the homes generally go to auction. As a trust, we have been interested in learning more about this and sent one of our members to a couple of these just to kind of see how it all works.
2 auctions.
It's an auction, right? So what we would do is acquire the home at auction and then go through the process of putting a deed restriction on it and then reselling it to an eligible homeowner, much like the ones that we just
Can you
accomplished.
tell me what the deed restriction is, how that works?
The deed restriction ensures that the house is affordable to an income eligible resident for a 30-year period of time. So it effectively limits the equity that anyone living in the home can get over that 30-year period of time. Let's say somebody moves in and maybe they get a better employment offer and they decide to leave town because they're moving to Ohio. So they've been in the house for 5 years. There's a factor that is written into the deed restriction that is based on like the cost of
It's a
living.
multiplier. I forget what the exact,
Right.
by
So if the house is worth 50,000 more, they get a slice?
It's not even that. There's a factor that's in the deed restriction, and it's about it's between like 2 and 3%.
2.5 is what I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Is it over?
Per year?
The original purchase price.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
That's all they get?
No, it
It's-
goes
it's-
up
it's
over
annual.
time.
it's an
Based
annualized
on
rate.
inflation and all those kind of things. It's-
But there's other advantages for the homeowner. It's a first-time homeowner, so they build their credit. They get all the advantages of in their life of having owned their first home. And after 5 years, if it's 2.5%, they can still make 12%.
Right.
But, but the whole idea is that the house was subsidized initially by the Housing Trust Fund.
And then it's
so-
still affordable and
Yeah.
you can still resell it to a new income eligible homeowner.
It also
Mortgage
has
is
something
held.
to do with area median income.
It has to be an income eligible household.
But also the multiplier has
Right.
something to do with that.
Hold on, what's that, Michael?
It's 62 pages long, so it's taking a little
We
while.
don't need
I don't
that.
want to read that.
Yeah, you don't.
That's the capital needs assessment.
Right.
Need that one, or just one copy?
This-
No, that's,
How about two?
yes.
Just 2 copies of that one.
2 copies.
How about 3?
Seven of all.
One for Liz.
Yeah.
I can read it on.
All right.
I'm printing it out.
And Mary Beth, who's holding the mortgage in these instances? These,
A bank, we have worked, we work with the lender, like every lender in town. Adams Community Bank is great with this. Lee Bank
Yep.
works with this. Berkshire Bank, most of the banks in the county work with this program. They all know about it.
And what's it called? Is it a name? Is it a name?
Well, I mean, they know about it insofar as they're all Community Reinvestment Act banks. I don't know if Greylock Federal Credit Union is
Yes,
because,
they are.
okay. Is there a credit union?
What kind of an interest rate do they?
You would get whatever competitive interest rate, this person, it's based on that person's credit scores, et cetera, et cetera.
The subsidy primarily in the down payment?
The subsidy is primarily in the fact that, this home, if it were on the open market, would probably go for somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 in one of our communities. We have to sell it for a rate that's kind of somewhat controlled by the Department of Housing and Community Development. You can sell it for up to a certain dollar amount. If it's a 2-bedroom home, a 3-bedroom home, a 4-bedroom home, and it varies.
But less than the market rate.
Less than market, so you're effectively underwriting the home in that regard.
Can you give us the actual numbers, say, of the homes? Because it's public
Okay,
information.
so off the top of my head, and I'm kind of
Someone's on
fuzzy.
this time.
Yeah, these are both homes on Hines Street, which is a small side street off of Hines Street. I believe we sold both of them for each one of them for $235,000. But that doesn't really take into account the fact that, we had the roof replaced and I'm going to just talk about one of the houses. So on one of the houses, we sold it for $235,000, but we put about, between the sales price and stuff that we put on the house, we put about $300,000 in. We sold it for $235,000, so we underwrote it for $65,000, essentially. That's the money that the town has into the project. But it's more important to us as a trust to get people into town who need to be in town, who are now close to the center of town, so they're close to the library, the community center, a grocery store, banks.
give them down payment assistance as well?
Yes, we also gave them a first-time home buyer assistance.
5% down.
We have a program by which we give up to $10,000 in assistance. And these two households also got Federal Home Loan Bank money, which is also available through the banks. So I think that was about $12,000 that each household also got. So they got about $22,000 in first-time home buying assistance. You underwriting the cost of the house, the cost of all the rehab things. The town itself did not do any of the rehabilitation. We worked with the developer who purchased these homes from the original owner or the former owner. All of these homes needed quite a bit of rehabilitation. They did what needed to be done there, but then when all was said and done, there were still some windows that needed to be redone. One house had to have the roof replaced, stuff like that. And those were not costs that the developer was willing to put in. So we, talked to our trust and decided that because this is going to be a home that's deed restricted for 30 years, it was better to have a new roof on the house than to have them have some catastrophic incident or leaks and have them come back to us at some other time for block grant funds, say.
So the developer bought the property, did the rehab, and then sold it
To the trust.
to the trust.
Right. And then we resold them through our agent Construct and Habitat for Humanity. They, in turn, coordinated the affirmative fair marketing process, which needs to be handled in such a way that you're meeting all the DHCD regulations with regard to letting any qualified income eligible applicant in the state of Massachusetts know about this house that's available for sale. And there are several hoops to jump through. Habitat did all the marketing and the application outreach. And then when all the applications came in, Construct did all the income qualifications and handled the lottery for us.
How many were in the lottery when you finally?
Well,
Not a lot.
with the first house, it was one.
Yeah.
With the second house, it was first come, first serve. And it was sort of, onesies, twosies. Again, people sometimes don't qualify. They get their application materials in, they don't qualify for whatever reason. Maybe they have some assets. Maybe their W-2 shows that they're really outside of the income eligibility amount. But it was single numbers.
So the developer, which wasn't you,
No.
Construct, it was a regular market rate developer?
It was a local person who does a lot of different types of development locally.
Okay, and purchased the house then for X amount, put in some money, got it to a second stage. You bought it at the second stage for 300,000.
No, we
Right.
bought one house for 275. We bought the other house for 220 or 230. I don't remember.
6 houses, so
Yeah,
full market.
there were six houses in this particular development. The developer kept 2. We were going to go with 4 for the lottery. We purchased 1. It became apparent that another house was going to be ready soon, and there was a person seriously interested in that house. But we realized that should it go into the lottery, that depending on how things were going to go, this person who lived and worked in Lenox and was income eligible might not win the house through the lottery. And so we were like, well, you could always just buy it from the developer because the developer still owns the house. And this is going to serve our purpose, which is getting an income qualified person who works in Lenox and could not afford a home otherwise to stay in Lenox. So that just happened. And then we had these 2 other,
But
we had
did you
3
help?
homes.
You helped with that?
No,
Well, you didn't help at all?
no,
not for the
no, we
one.
just heard that, there was a person who wanted it and then, we were all scratching our heads, well, if this goes into a lottery, anybody could get this. But this person really is a person who works in Lenox and wants to live in Lenox.
How did you make it affordable? Or how did the
That one is
developer?
It's the
That one is-
developer just sold it at, they rehabbed it and sold it at cost and it was affordable to this person. And that just worked. It's a very tiny house. It's a very small house.
I was going to say, all these numbers sound
It's,
so low for Berkshire County.
oh, they are. They are. They were.
You got it from a developer for 200 and, what'd you say, 35?
Yeah, because this developer wants to do
Right.
affordable
She wanted
housing.
specifically to do a combination of market and affordable.
So they must have bought it for really low, fixed it up, and then.
They did.
I mean, it must have been
So
a,
it was in tough shape?
Yes, these 6 homes were in tough shape.
So when did they take on that project? Because I know real estate prices have gone up.
4 or 5 years ago, like 4 years ago.
This is pre-COVID prices.
Thanks,
Oh, yeah.
sorry about that.
Michael, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very unique situation. It was a single owner who had rented all these units and wanted to get out of the game because they were getting older and not wanting to deal with the level of deferred maintenance. So it was a special project. We were really happy it worked out because it served the clients that we were hoping to serve.
So you have, those are the pictures in the paper. You've got some publicity. That's the project.
I guess so.
A while ago, yeah.
It was old,
that
it was
like
old.
last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And you're going to talk about the block grant thing too, or not?
Sure, yeah, I can talk about anything you want me to talk about.
Yeah.
So you guys are already members of a coalition of communities in Berkshire County that applied for community development block grant funds. These are federal funds that flow through the state to small cities in the Commonwealth. A coalition of communities got together in Berkshire County, applied for these funds in 2020. You guys were awarded, it was a 5-community jurisdiction. You were awarded like $1.2 million. I since understand that 2 of the communities are no longer income eligible.
No, two of the applicants. We had applicants right around the start of COVID, and then the whole program got delayed with COVID. We'll take a step back. So what a community block grant is it's money to fix a house if you're income eligible. So if you need a new roof and it's 40 grand, you can get 40 grand from this block grant to fix your house.
And you have to be the owner occupant.
Has to be owner occupied, and you have to be income eligible. And so it turns out that that a couple of the folks who either applied or we thought were income eligible weren't. And so the state has just restarted this program. And people should know that if they want more information on home repairs, they should contact me or Annie or Michael Canales in the town administrator's office, and we can help them apply because this is now reopened. So separately, we're talking about doing a community block grant with Lennox for the next round.
Yep. So we also tried to get funds in that 2020 round and we were unsuccessful. We were with a coalition with Lee and Clarksburg. And so we're hoping to go out again. The application is due March 3rd. We'd like to do it with Stockbridge and Lee to reapply again. You can be part of another application because it's an annual distribution of funds. So you would be getting another distribution of funds through the FY24 cycle. So we would like to partner with you guys in order to do that because we have several we have homes scattered throughout Lennox that could really use this type of rehabilitation.
So we pull the money and then we find the people.
No, actually, we announce it.
Ahead of time.
The people apply through the partner who's managing the program, and
Which would be us.
And you guys are, what's it called?
We're the lead.
No, but you've got a firm that you're working with.
Well, we don't have
No,
a
you
firm that
don't.
we're working with yet. We may be working with a firm. We don't.
But the point I'm making is it's completely confidential. That we don't know who's applying. No, the lead vets the candidates and so folks don't need to worry about, they're not sharing their information with any of us. We're just simply facilitating the ability for them to, get this access and get this support if they need it.
And so what would happen is we would get, let's say we got $1 million from the federal government. The communities would be responsible for matching that $1 million with $250,000. Or actually, let's say we got $750,000, we'd have to match it with $250,000 to make it the $1 million. This is a 25% match. That makes my math a little easier because I don't want to do 25% of.
Fuzzy math.
Yeah. So there's that.
How much are you thinking of applying for with the 3 towns?
What happens, I think, is you apply as a group of towns and then the state decides based on the amount of money that they have coming in and based on, the applications and how competitive they come in, they kind of go, we have enough money for 7 communities and they draw a line and then they divvy the money up. So.
All right.
So we
It's
don't,
just a 25% match of whatever. we
comes
receive.
in.
Yeah.
but you don't know what we're going, do we say we'd like $5 million or do we say we want $1 million or we just say we'd like money?
I think we say we just would like money.
Right. And if we're in,
Like I said,
if we're doing it with,
like-
if we're doing it with Lee and Lennox, and let's say it was $1 million total, in all likelihood, because those communities are bigger, we wouldn't get a third. We would probably get 15 or 20% if we're lucky, something like that, which just makes the match a lot more,
Is it
affordable
done
for
by
us.
population then?
I honestly
I
don't.
know with
answer
Dalton,
that.
I know with the one that we're in, we got a little bit less than the other communities. I don't recall the exact numbers, but it's, look at it, we can always, why not apply? We can kind of.
Well, no, I'm not
Yeah,
arguing.
I'm not 100% sure of the answer to that question. I would like to be able to answer it.
What do you want us to do?
I just want you to write a letter of support from your select board, stating that, you would like to be on board with the program, and we'll get your housing stock information from the Berkshire benchmarks, et cetera. And we'll put an application together, and then we would, of course, hand it over to the select board, and, the trust could certainly.
Is there a role for the trust in this, in the block grant process?
Okay, I think we're new, we're kind of defining our role, but I think that anything that has to do with helping folks stay in their homes or acquire a home or rent a home, I think that's a really good,
Like if the trust was the only organization in town that had CPC funds to match for this, we would also like a letter of support from the trust, because the
Yeah.
trust would be potentially where
source for the match.
Stockbridge would be providing the match.
Is that how you'd see it?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that it would be CPC money?
Yeah, I'm very much a fan of distributive responsibility. Let's get out of the select board and get it into the committee.
Right. That's usually
Okay.
the cleanest way.
So you need, you mentioned something when we talked about a windshield study that we need to drive around and.
It's usually useful to pick a couple of target areas. That's the best way to refer to them. If you have areas of the community that you have, potentially, more housing that looks like it requires assistance, let's say, could certainly use new paint. You can kind of tell from looking at it that potentially they need a new roof, maybe fences are falling down, et cetera. So a house like that could also need weatherization improvements, a new roof, potentially new windows. All of the eligible activities in CDBG rehab homes are primarily major systems in need of repair. So a roof, a furnace, windows, so that it becomes a little bit more weather tight.
Siding?
Potentially siding, yes.
Okay.
Siding, paint.
So would you like us, meaning the trust members, to do this windshield study, or who would actually do this?
I would probably get back to you on that, because it would probably be better if we sort of had all that information gathered at a single point, or, like within like about a week or two of all of the areas.
Yeah,
If we.
So you would provide direction.
Yes, I will be definitely speaking with you guys again.
Good.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Anybody? Jan, you have any questions on this?
You're muted.
Yes, no, you've answered the questions I had, which was our involvement and role in it. And I'd be very happy to help in that process.
Excellent.
Did you want to talk at all about the multi-town opportunities? Yeah, you talked about kind of a regional approach to housing, that you're doing some housing in Lennox, but that it could count toward multi-town sort of involvement somehow. Wasn't one on Route 7 you were thinking was going to be something that we might do as a regional?
Right. There's the potential for doing some more regional rental housing. We're working with a developer right now, Penrose LLC. If you guys are members of LinkedIn, if you go into LinkedIn and put in Penrose, PENNROSE LLC, they are a very active multifamily developer. They're active nationwide, but they're particularly active in the mid-Atlantic states, and they have several projects that they've recently done in Massachusetts, 2 on the Cape, 1 in Orleans, 1 in Eastham. Wareham, I think they were also done one. It's Wareham or Waltham, I get those two confused. Auburn, they've done several in Connecticut, in Pennsylvania. They're very active and extremely engaged. What they do is they help get federal and state tax credits to either rehab, say, older historic structures like schools or mills, or take land that may be brownfield and clean it up and build new housing that is rental. They do mixed income rentals, so they'll do market rate and more workforce / affordable housing. And then they manage these properties afterward. They manage them for the duration. They don't cut and run after 15 years. They're in it for 50, 60 years. That's their model. That's what they're in for. We're doing a project right now with them at Brushwood Farms, which is right across the street from our Aspinwell shops where Chocolate Springs is, right next to the Courtyard Marriott Hotel on Route 7.
There used to be a ham store up there.
I don't know, maybe.
It's the country ham store, wasn't it?
Way back.
Yeah, I've only been here for 20 years, so I'm kind of a carpetbagger. So they're talking about there's a secondary property that the person who actually owns the property is interested in Penrose purchasing the property to do more rental housing.
On the Marriott there.
No, farther down Route 7, farther north. And Penrose would love to get involved with more than one community to get CPC funds from several communities in the Berkshires. And then if we could get a number of communities within the Berkshires, we could probably ensure that when they go to rent the place up, it would be rented 100% to those in Berkshire County. They did that on the Cape. They got several towns to kick in to the project that they have in Eastham. It was Eastham, Orleans, and some other jurisdiction. I don't think it went as far south as Barnstable, but Wellfleet also kicked in. They kicked in their CPC funds, and then they made it a Cape Cod eligible. So it was 100% Cape Cod eligible rentals. The way things work currently, generally projects will open up and anyone from within the state of Massachusetts can come to apply to live in those
Who makes that
communities.
decision? The state?
The state makes that decision, yeah, DHCD. But if we could show,
Right.
support from several communities within Berkshire County, they could potentially just designate it a Berkshire County, rental facility and rent it up. And those people would get first positions on the waiting list. It would
County
be a
people.
65 unit property, 50 units would be affordable/workforce and 15 would be market rate. But there's nothing different about any of those units. They're all the same types of units. They all have the same types of amenities, but it's all new construction.
Right.
So,
Now, that's been in the paper, that particular
Correct.
project, a lot.
correct.
And it was controversial, but I think you overcame some of those.
I hope so. I hope we.
Is it
overcome-
underway?
It's underway insofar as it's gotten all of the local ZBA comprehensive permitting. That's all been approved. And now it's going to go to DHCD for funding this month.
So the alphabet soup again, who is that?
That's the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they're the ones responsible for assigning state tax credits to the property. And these are state and federal tax credit properties that become built because they are very expensive to build. New construction is extraordinarily expensive nationwide. And really the only way to do any type of new construction is with these tax credits.
Can you give us a little bit of structure, or do you know that yet?
Off the top of my head, I know that there are 9% federal tax credits and 4% state tax credits that are in the deal. I don't remember what the pro forma said, but they've secured $500,000 from the town of Lennox's CPC. They're asking for $500,000 from our trust. We have a pending payment with someone else who wants to develop a new executive rental property on Route 7 that's between the Marriott and Pittsfield. And instead of building the 2 units that they would be on the hook to build according to our bylaws, our planning board bylaws, they've made a $475,000 payment. They've agreed to make a $475,000 payment when they pull the building permit for the project. So when they pull the building permit for the project, the trust will receive $475,000. And I'm anticipating that with that payment plus $25,000 from the trust, we would go in and make the additional $500,000 payment. So we would be putting $1 million into the project locally. That makes our application look very competitive to the state. The state sees that there is local support for this. And we're very hopeful that it gets funded during this funding round. And perhaps if not this funding round, I understand there's going to be potentially a mini round in the summer. There was last year. We didn't make the mini round last year, but hopefully we'll get funding this year.
So what's the total cost of the project?
It was about $30 to $31 million. I'm sure that the costs have increased since we got that first pro forma because that was early on in the pandemic. I don't know what it is currently.
How many units again?
65.
So 500,000.
It's generally $500,000 a unit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about infrastructure that has to be put in.
Is that land acquisition also? Or is that,
No, they acquired the land themselves in a private transaction.
and they're putting that, the developers are putting that in?
Yes,
So 31 million or 30 million, you put in $1 million, they have to raise 30. And out of that, I assume there'll be some bank loan. How much of it would you anticipate being tax credits in dollar?
I honestly don't have any idea. Off the top of my head, I don't remember those numbers.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of structures are there? Would they be like garden home type things?
There are 5 units per building. There are going to be 13 buildings. Plus, I think it's either 13, I think it's 13 residential buildings plus a clubhouse.
And they're what, all one story?
They're all 2-story.
They're 2-story.
They're 2-story buildings. They're in a circle. It's a circular driveway. It would go up. There's a light right now where this project would be going in. There's a traffic light, so we don't have any traffic issues. It goes up the hill. There's going to be a large circular driveway. All of the buildings will be around the driveway. There's only going to be one building visible from the street, and that is the leasing/clubhouse facility, where, the leasing office will be, where they will have all of the maintenance, snow plow, blah, 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 all the stuff that they'll need to clear the walkways, et cetera. All the parking is exterior, either in front of the buildings. There are some around the road going around. It's all been approved by our police department, our fire department. So everybody in town has signed off on it. DPW, as far, they've had the plans done for, drainage and water and sewer, et cetera.
You just need the money.
We just need the money. That's all we need. That's all we need.
That's usually the final rub.
That's all we need.
I have one more thing for you.
Certainly.
I had a very good meeting with Tom Shanahan, who was one of the early members of the trust in Williamstown. And he mentioned to me that several years ago, you, Lennox and Williamstown got together and had a meeting of the 2 trusts. And he thought it might be, since now there are 5 of us, that we might try to organize a group meeting. I wondered if
Great idea.
we would have support. for doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We haven't talked to anybody. In fact, we haven't talked about it among ourselves, but I hope we can perhaps get that.
That's a great idea. And I know
Underway.
there's also a meeting pending on January 31st. Correct?
Yes, I just sent the invitation to the town administrator.
Yeah, if we have it, I'll send it to you.
Yes, we have it. Hopefully, everybody has it.
Yeah, and that's to discuss the housing situation in Berkshire County and the need for more affordable properties, more workforce housing, just a general dearth of housing opportunities locally for
It's the
support
Zoom
staff.
meeting, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Is Lennox, I have one more question.
Sure.
Is Lennox doing anything for sort of seasonal housing similar to what they're doing in Great Barrington, where it's kind of like, almost like a motel rooms with common space to cook that's specifically for, because I'll tell you, BSO's still losing several $1 million a year. And between us, we obviously share that Tanglewood campus
Yeah.
and their costs around housing, because they move all their seasonal people out for the summer. They don't hire locals, all the lighting guys, everyone. Those are people who work at Symphony Hall, and that entire staff moves out here and they've got to find housing for everyone. And it was a lot easier before the short-term rental age came in, because now people can make so much more renting their homes on the market. And you know,
That's a big problem.
and there's a lot of turnover there right now. So, you know, I don't know, but I think that having us thinking about kind of how we support seasonal workers, where, you know, it's so critical to, you know, we're kind of at the, you know, the epicenter of it.
We're trying to look at other properties in town, like there's the Lennox Inn that's on Route 7 that's
Yeah.
sort of defunct, and we're not really sure who owns it or whatever, and we keep talking to one another going, somebody's got to find out who owns that. We got to figure something out with that. But it's sort of like that.
I think
You
there's
sort of
someone
have
at
to-
the table
I
who
could do that
knows.
easily.
Yeah.
Oh, great. But there's certainly properties out there
Yeah.
that.
Like in Stockbridge, maybe like that Levan property where it's got 15 buildings on it that were, you know, that don't really have full build outs, but you know, they could be sort of renovated and made nice rooms, and there's a common kitchen, and, you know, it's great for some kid who's moving up here for 2 months to, like, you know, work at the Berkshire Theater Group or, you know, Tanglewood or something.
Right,
you know.
It needs a.
Or elderly, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it looks like a big
It needs
project.
it's a huge.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know,
Just tell me what your principal sources of income are. Trust.
CPC and donations, but CPC, and we got an infusion of town tax dollars of general revenues a while back, about $130,000 one year. I'm going to ask for cannabis tax money.
Good idea.
I think that would be a good.
what is Lennox's budget?
We've got barely anything coming in right now.
No, but like, what's the order of magnitude? 30 million, 35 million, the total budget?
Oh, the budget. Oh, yes, it's about 30 million, yes.
So, and do you have a standing appropriation from the general fund for
No.
affordable housing?
No, we
Are you
don't.
going to ask for one, or is that?
That's a good idea. We probably should.
Does any of these trusts have arranged for a 1% tax on Airbnb fees or anything like
Great
that?
idea.
Oh, well, we got Senator Marcus coming in February to talk to us, hit him, ask him. Yeah, there's we get 6% right now from all the Airbnbs or rental that are registered with the state, and they're all supposed to be. But the Cape, Chicopee, Worcester, Springfield, and Boston all get an extra 2.75%. On the Cape, it's for water quality or something, or
Water
it's basically,
conservation.
yeah. And, the other ones is for convention centers. It's basically targeted higher levels. And I have suggested that the Berkshires would benefit from a similar ability to charge a slightly higher local occupancy option to put towards things like this. Because, you know, we just don't have the industry out here that some.
Well, in a way, the Airbnbs have driven up real estate prices and made affordability more difficult. So they should
Yeah.
mitigate that a little bit and kick something in.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
That
don't-
would have to be passed, though, I think.
The state, probably the state has to let us do it.
I think the legislature probably has to say yes, that we can do that.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But, so I like this 2.75, if we can get that out here for.
But do they have to say yes per
No, it would be
area?
it'd be like a regional thing similar to what the Cape has. If the Cape has it for their tourism, why can't we have it for ours?
Right.
And we're the,
But we,
You know.
just because the Cape has it, doesn't mean we can have it?
well,
We have
it's
to ask.
it's back to the legislature.
They lobbied for it and they got it passed
Yeah.
for the Cape. So we need to get it passed for Berkshire County.
Yeah.
And
Where
then
would that start?
It has already started. We have, like I said, our state senators coming in to talk to the town, and this is something that I've been in touch with them on.
What, at the select board level or?
Yeah, no,
the town meeting?
it's really not a select board, it's a regional thing. It was just an idea that I talked to them about. So we'll see if it goes anywhere.
I think it's a
But
good
I
idea.
mean, is that something the trust should be?
we could all get behind it, you know?
Yeah, if everybody writes a letter, never.
I just feel like
Letters are
rather than
better.
supporting property, all of these things with property taxes, it's great if we can support it with tourist revenue. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's better to support it with tourism.
Governor's got to push on for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would think that something like this is a perfect fit.
Absolutely.
Imagine, well, obviously imagine opposition, but
Yeah,
I think it's something that should have a lot of weight behind it.
yeah, I agree.
All right. How do we get our groups together? So would,
Probably just get our calendars together and call a meeting.
okay,
Yeah,
would you like us to take the lead to do that?
sure. I'm always happy when someone else takes the lead.
All right. Would you like to be hostess in your
I would love to be
beautiful town
hostess in
hall?
our town hall. Happy to do
A
that.
nice room for it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Up the stairs.
Yes.
So we need to know when it's available before we make a date.
Oh, that, no, give me a few dates and then we'll check it out because our auditorium is open a lot now. And we have carpet and curtains on the window, so it's a little less cacophonous
Right.
than it was. So
Okay,
we can certainly do that.
terrific. Maybe we'll
So if you come here, we can
have
zoom
someone
in,
in our
let
group
people zoom
who
in,
wants to do
which is always
that,
good.
take the
Yeah.
lead. But I do think it's a great idea. And I know that Williamstown thinks it's a great idea, so we got three.
That's
I've
good.
been trying to get a hold of Betsy Sherman, who is the chair of Pittsfield.
I didn't realize she was the chair of Pittsfield. I didn't know they lived in Pittsfield.
No, but she's the chair.
No, great, that's perfect.
And who's chair in Great Barrington? Does anybody know?
Is it Fred?
Fred Clark.
Fred, yeah.
Fred Clark.
Good, yeah. If you want to shoot for mid-February?
For this,
Yeah,
can we put it
mid-
together?
mid to late
My
February?
thinking was to have some sort of informational, to have someone come and talk to us. We could learn something maybe about tax credits, maybe, I don't know what.
Sure, we could- I
What
could-
subject would be,
I could probably get someone from Mass Development to come or Mass Housing, yeah.
come and talk to us about how we go about, I mean, we are the newest of the group.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, yeah, I can THCD and Mass Housing or
Mass
Mass,
Housing Partnership. I
yeah,
would go to.
yeah, MHP,
what,
that's true.
through Laura or?
Mass Housing Partnership is Shelley Goring,
I think so.
Goring, I can't remember. But I will make some phone calls.
Okay, all right. So target, is that too quick? That's
Or
only
late February?
late
Is late
February?
February good? Yeah, late February.
Before that. We have to do CPC stuff before that, so.
That's true.
Save our time.
Yeah, we better, our CPC is due February 10th,
Okay, we'll do it later.
later, and sort of target the end of February.
Got it.
Okay. All right,
Does Jim have any questions?
Jim, do you all, Andrea, Jim, do you have anything you'd like to ask Mary Beth?
No, I don't. I just think that it's, a very good idea, and hopefully we can do something like that here.
Very
To-
informational.
what my way of thinking is to be able to move a family with kids into the community would be a big deal. It's good for the town. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Good. Jan,
All right.
are you good? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to meet you.
I'm so glad you guys are, out there and you want to move in the same direction. Very exciting. Thank you.
We're hoping. Right
for
now, we
having me.
have a pretty big task to help.
Got to start somewhere. We
That's right.
got to walk, got to crawl before we can walk.
Thank you for coming, Mary Beth. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
How are you?
Now,
I'm well, thanks.
this is, Liz, you get,
Sure.
you are in charge of this. Your turn.
Okay, I'm introducing Jane Ralph, the Executive Director of Construct. And we were lucky enough to meet with her this morning just to get an idea of what the needs are at Pinewoods, and that is our focus in this discussion.
Right, so thank you for the opportunity to meet with you.
No, we made budgets.
Just,
Just following up, I've
Do you-
got it on here, yep. Patrick is passing out the capital needs assessment. It's long and very detailed. The first 7 pages really have what you need, and then everything else feeds that. So that's, the executive summary goes on beyond that, but that really highlights the things that are of biggest concern, some of which are being addressed. To tie this conversation to the conversation you just had, one of the things that helps an affordable housing trust really get off the ground is success. And I think taking before and after pictures at Pinewoods could be a really great way to do that. Because I think there are structural things that are clearly laid out in here. What we also talked about this morning is how do we make sure that it's a hospitable, livable place? That can be done without a lot of expense. That can be done with volunteers getting involved. That can be done with either pro bono or low bono landscape architecture. We've got a master gardener who is also an architect on our board. She loves to help coordinate those kind of things. So it can be a really good opportunity to kind of build community, which is ultimately what Construct's about. We are absolutely about the brick and mortar part of housing, but we're mostly about the people that live there. And so to talk about Pinewoods just for a minute, while the property itself is troubled, more folks have gone on from that property to home ownership than any of our other properties combined. So those 30 units have had over 25 households go on from Pinewoods directly to being able to buy a home. It's not happening in the last couple of years, as you might guess, and it's getting harder, but those habitat homes, the homes that can be purchased in rehabbed in receivership or using the type of project that Mary Beth described. Those are the types of things that we're already working with our households so that they're ready for that. So we don't simply put them in there and say, here you go, you're rented up. We really try to help folks continue to move through their own life cycle of affordable housing.
Do you have any record that they bought in Stockbridge?
I don't know that. June might have some of that. We would at least have the next place that they went.
That would be terrific.
I'm not sure. I will ask her to look for that.
What kind of a turnover rate do you have in those units?
Less than 2%. The biggest turnover that we had was when we built Forest Springs down in Great Barrington. And some of the folks were working in Great Barrington and so applied to the lottery to get into that property and were able to. So we had maybe 5% that year. That was 2018-19. But usually it's less than 2%.
I like your little bumper sticker on your.
Thank you. I can get those for you. I should have brought some.
The IMBY bumper.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Fantastic. 2% of 30 units is
Almost
like less than one.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like one
We
every
have an
other year.
extreme.
That's very unusual then, isn't it?
Yeah, and all the rental units are so hard to come by that it's pretty low throughout
Yeah.
South Berkshire.
I mean, if anybody loses their housing now,
It's serious.
they're in big trouble.
Right. And throughout COVID, there was an eviction moratorium in place. And so that wasn't happening, but then kind of a backlog happened. And so now Housing Court is moving folks through. And as much as I don't like to see eviction, if folks aren't paying their rent, that's kind of the only response a landlord has, other than us giving them lots of money for rental assistance. What would be helpful to know? What would be about Pinewoods or about how we can work together?
You said, I assume by troubled you meant that there's just some maintenance that we need to figure out how to fund, things like the boilers, the roof, the siding.
Right, and the fact that, as we discussed this morning, it was built on a floodplain, and the water has gone up in the 15 years since it came up, almost 20 years since it came on board. So that's a challenge. Part of what I think we can do is continue to mediate that through other ways that the water can be drained off. We're definitely doing some of that with the road repairs that we're doing now that the CPA helped to fund. Through other plantings, there's old trees that are falling down and decaying. We can do some other supplement with some other plants that will help hold the water. So there are things like that. But it was Construct's first major housing project build up from the ground up. It was CC's first. They were our housing developer. And we've learned a lot since then, I guess I would say.
Does the place ever get swamped, like the Stockbridge Golf Club?
The actual apartments don't, but certainly the flooding of the driveway was part of why it took us so long to get it done, because if the potholes are filled with water, it's pretty hard to actually do the excavation and the work that needs to be done.
On this list of these renovations and repairs and whatnot, what are your priorities of urgency and, batting
Yeah.
order.
Yep, the top two are for sure doing the final third of the driveway. We've done about 2/3. They were supposed to do half, but they actually got about 2/3 the way around and did the worst part of it. So we want to complete that other third. And then the rest of the boilers. They're replacing those slowly over the years, but we can't find parts for these boilers anymore. There's more fuel efficient choices, that kind of thing. They just keep getting more expensive.
What is the fuel over there? What do they use for?
It's, I don't think
Natural
it's
gas?
propane. It's not natural gas. It's, oil or fuel oil or propane. I'm not sure which. Am I
Is there
making
any-
that up? I might be.
Well, the propane tanks would be pretty big if you'd.
Yeah, I don't-
Buried them.
I don't think we're on natural gas.
It might be.
Because I live.
I should know that. I'm
Pretty
sorry.
close to that, to there on.
You get natural gas?
On North,
Yeah.
not on Church Street.
Yeah, these are not the questions I
It's all
usually get.
solar, isn't it?
Do you have gas?
Natural gas.
Renewable. Maybe we are. I don't know.
No,
That's-
natural gas is now considered
This is
renewable
why
according
June
to
and I
Ohio.
usually tag team these. She knows those answers and then,
The homes are on stilts though, most of them?
yes, yes, with the parking below.
But
Yeah.
so
I think that was for flooding.
two questions. One, the CPC funded some of the,
150.
and is this 150 in addition to that for the last third? Or
It's over 300,000.
to do the driveway?
Yeah, for the
Okay.
total. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And was there commitment to some percentage, sorry about that, of that to be covered by Pine Woods when we did the CPC grants? I just don't remember.
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. So it's basically 130 150 is
I can look back
the
at the
to finish
application, but, yeah.
amount.
So really, the 150 that you've already spent that CPC funded last year is an ad.
Correct.
So it's really.
Well, we're not asking, I mean, we already.
Right.
I know,
it's already been
but
allocated.
the budget is $1.2 million.
Right.
I mean,
So those are things that
we
are.
already did the work though, so it's.
Right, so these are things that still need to, we need to find ways to pay.
But in terms of looking at money spent, it's still that 150 is part of this program.
Well,
That 150 is 150 in addition to what we've
To
already
the
received.
150 that you've already received. But in terms of having a program to get Pine Woods up to a new standard, $1.2 million,
we don't.
of which $150,000 has already been spent.
But in the last 20 years, they've spent lots on other things too. I
Right.
mean, how we count things we've already spent is kind of arbitrary.
Okay.
I do have a question though, it's on
Everybody
stilts.
have this?
Are there like helical, what do they call
Piers.
pilot piers?
Here's, yes.
That go down into the,
Yes, I'm not sure how deep.
Okay.
Again, those are the June questions.
yeah.
It's probably concrete.
I can talk to you about the budget.
Okay, all right.
Do you know if the boilers, are they referring to as heat pumps now? Is that what they're pushing on?
We don't, for a variety of reasons, we were not planning to go with heat pumps. For one thing, it's not already electric heat. And so for this particular property, we think that the replacing with traditional but more efficient boilers is a better way to go. Heat pumps are an interesting phenomenon when it gets really cold. And so as a
Yes.
supplement, it's a great thing.
Supplement,
Yeah, and I would not supplement with the existing boilers. Like, if the boilers were still functional, then I think that would be great to be able to do for greater efficiency. But
And have you
Not with
replaced
these
any of the
boilers.
boilers yet? Oh, 26,
Yes.
you've already done 6 of them.
we've done 4 of them.
4, okay. Okay.
In a very brief discussion after, a non-official discussion after the CPC meeting last week, some of the members were looking down this and said they have a particular, Pine Woods supposedly is an exception, but in general, CPC money can't be used for maintenance.
But this was built with CPC dollars, and so that is an allowable expense.
Right.
If we just came to you and there hadn't been CPC dollars to get it funded,
Right.
then you're absolutely right.
But the thought was also, I'm sorry, do you?
Go ahead.
No, the thought also was that you had some money in a capital reserve.
We do. We have almost 200,000 between operating and capital. So operating, I want to say, is about 100,000.
What do you think of as operating?
Operating is like if I was telling this morning that we have not, Pinewoods has not been able to pay Construct as the parent company for all the staffing we provide for over the years. So technically, we could use those operating reserves to pay for the staffing to offset it. So far, Construct has been in a position to not have to bill for that. It could be other non-capital expenses,
But none of these numbers though have, these are basically out-of-pocket numbers. They're not, fully loaded, if you will, with staff, because the staff's gonna have to manage this.
Right, this would include the labor for contractors, but not the staff time.
Right, okay.
And when you say staff, that's
about
June.
Our maintenance staff is, for these, it's mainly our maintenance staff.
What about paying June for what she does and Kathy for what? Where is Kathy in this, in the budget?
In the budget under admin. So the two categories of salary in the budget are the maintenance and then the admin. So the property management, the lease ups, the compliance work that has to be done annually, the responding to folks when they're having, concerns that need to be addressed, mediating between tenants when necessary.
You're not using that word here.
I think it's payroll.
General, the choices are general, 33,000, payroll, 20,000.
Right. I have them. If you look at the P&L, there's more details. So the payroll part would include both the admin and maintenance.
Admin would be the people in your office.
Would be Kathy and our property management assistant. June really doesn't do a lot on a day-to-day basis. She supervises Kathy. But June is focused much more on housing development as much as possible.
Okay, so 20,000 is, that she does other things, I assume.
Oh, yes, yeah. So Kathy is our property manager for all of our properties.
And 20, what's in general?
General would be, I'd have to look at the P&L to have more detail.
We don't have that.
I sent it to you, so it should have been printed. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know what else to say except for that, Dad.
So what is the,
So P&L is,
That's your balance sheet. That's what you gave us this morning.
I know, but I sent both of them this afternoon, which I thought you were doing printouts of.
Okay. No. Somehow we don't have that yet.
It was one of the documents.
Okay.
how was operating budget 23, that one? No.
Operating is not a lot of detail.
Yeah.
So P&L.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I bet I know what happened. I sent it all in a Excel spreadsheet.
Different tabs.
Workbook, and there were two different sheets on it. So one of the sheets didn't get printed.
Okay.
Like, I know I said that.
So,
All right. We don't have it yet. So if you can look at it on your computer,
Sure.
just tell us for purposes of discussion, then we'll get it and look at it more carefully.
so to the degree that we were to try to bond some of this, so with CPC, we can, similar to, let's say the Tuckerman Bridge, okay? When we repair and maintain a bridge, or in that case, never replace it, it has a lifetime, a span of time that we expect it to be, in function that justifies, borrowing to pay for it. And similarly, how long do we think what's the sort of estimated lifetime or duration of a boiler?
These boilers normally about 20 years, but these were old. It was an old model that was.
All right, so that's 20-year lifetime, life cycle, whatever. Same with the driveway. How often
Well, that
driveways need to be
driveway
repaid?
was one of those situations where they were planning to do airport mix and then found out that they had money at the end of it and decided to pave it, but without all of the grading that really should have been done to maintain it.
But for the
So it should
work
have
we're doing
been
now,
on us.
we expect it to last 10 years, 20 years? Because I don't want to borrow beyond what the expected life expectancy is for the thing.
You seem to know this stuff.
I don't think a driveway gets one.
I don't see 10 years. It depends how it's made also. If it's not graded right, that's going to really take away from
Yeah,
it.
I would have to look that up. Again, not my area.
I mean, appliances last for 10, 20 years.
I mean,
Depends.
it depends.
Depends who
Yeah.
makes it
Yeah, it
and
depends.
when they were built.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're now making appliances.
I'm just looking at the
that last this long.
largest items on the
Right.
list and, yeah, basically.
I mean, the good news is with the appliances, if we can stagger, the replacement of them, then they're not all
Gonna go up.
falling. Exactly. And that has been what we've been seeing.
Right.
We've replaced some as we go.
But is the plan, this budget, or this projected cost assumes you're going to go in and all 30 units will get a full set of new appliances for the whole kitchens? all the
Not at the
kitchens?
same time, but we want, that's part of our preventive maintenance plan for sure.
Yeah.
That we need to be ready to replace those things.
But I think our hope is that we can bond some of our CPC money for 15 years, Patrick.
Well, that's why I'm asking how long these things last, because you don't want to bond it for, you don't want to be paying for stuff you had to replace before the bond is due.
Yeah, well, these all have different,
Experience thus far, I would say 15 years is a reasonable.
Yeah. So looking at this list, it seems like the boilers, the driveway, the appliances, the flooring, the sliding replacement and the roofing all could easily be justified over a 15-year bond. I think that when it comes to things like painting, that seems like a stretch for 15 years to last for paint.
Yep.
Same with tree work.
Yep.
Same for community building stove. So my sense is that if we came up with some kind of arrangement, if you will, maybe those three items for 95,600 comes out of your capital fund, and we were to bond the remaining items with that, because if we're paying for it over 15 years, we want the items that would last the longest to be, the ones to still be in use while we're paying for them.
I seriously doubt that my board would approve taking 95,000 out of about 100,000 of our reserves.
And so how much do you think they would approve?
I hate to, I can't second guess what they would do. If the roof was falling in, we need to make sure the money is there, if we don't get the timing right. So-
Right, I'm not challenging you, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that, the CBC meeting is Thursday and the deadline is February 10th. So
Right.
we've got to come up with.
Right.
and-
I would say 50,000 is safe and that they would
50,000,
probably want to
okay.
keep about 45.
Okay.
And we continue to build it every year. We feed it every year, but,
Right.
we feed it.
Okay.
16,000,
Right.
it's like about
Right.
what you put
Right.
in per year. But you felt that you could have a certain amount of fundraising even for this program.
Correct. And we think that this would be a great opportunity to reach out to family foundations, to local donors, that kind of thing.
And do you typically fundraise every year for Pine Woods or
No.
not?
Because it's a for-profit organization, we have not fundraised for it at all.
Construct is for profit?
No, Construct is not, Pine Woods is, because it's a low-income tax credit project. And so until we are fully done with that tax credit period, it actually belongs to National Equity Partners, our investment partner. We're in the process of sunsetting that, where the 99% that they own comes over to us. And so at that point, our hope is to convert Pine Woods into a nonprofit that we could fundraise for directly. Currently, we fundraise for Construct, and Construct tries to supplement Pine Woods when it can.
But can CPC fund for profits?
It can fund affordable housing,
Okay,
so.
okay.
And I assume everyone knows about how tax
I mean,
credits work.
and for-profit in this case is just a tax code.
Okay.
I have a CPC
We're
question.
not making money on it.
Right.
It's still affordable housing that we have to invest it back into the.
I understand about 30% of the CPC is supposed to be dedicated for housing
Well, at minimum 10% is the law.
and minimum 10. Where's that money currently going before the existence of this group?
Well, every year there's applications and the Community Preservation Committee reviews them and decides how to split it up. And so we get 3% of tax revenues. And then the state match, I think state match this year was like 38%,
Something like that.
32%, something like that.
So if we want to direct all that money to the trust, we must be stepping on somebody's toes somewhere, no?
I strongly encourage you to do that. As it's so much better for it to come to the Affordable Housing Trust. This is what you guys are focused on. You're not focused on the other areas of funding. So then say that roof does fall in and we don't have this plan in front of us, we can come to you off cycle. If we had to come to CPC, then we can only come once a year and then we wait for town meeting,
But these kind of numbers though, you see, because CPC is if you bond CPC, you have a guaranteed stream of revenue because you can't dissolve CPC if you have an outstanding bond. So in other words, we could say, rather than collect 15 years of grants from CPC to our housing trust fund and then replace the roof, which already needs to be replaced. We've seen all around town on roads and bridge projects where deferred maintenance is not in the interest of the town.
Right.
And so in this case, I think we've got two separate issues. We don't just want to be funding us so we have the ability to fund things off cycle, as you're saying. We also want to be able to bond maintenance now that we can justify by saying, look, at the roof needs to be repaired, but that's going to last 20 years. Right. Every roof is guaranteed for 30 years now. So, so you got a situation where you might as well borrow that and fix it now rather than, because it's just basically, it's
And
just
the
future
CPC money is assured to continue to flow through a bonding period. In other words,
you can't. The town could vote to discontinue CPC at any time, but if it has an existing bond, it can't vote to discontinue.
So other towns have done this, then they borrowed against the CPC fund.
Most other towns do it. There's not a lot of it in the Berkshires, but in the rest of the state, it's very common.
It's very
the only way you afford.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's the only way you can afford to do big projects, whether it's open space or housing.
It becomes part of our budget
Yeah.
moving forward.
Well, right, and say an opportunity falls in our lap to be able to expand affordable housing in Stockbridge, but we need town, exactly what Mary Beth was talking about. Without town investment, it's very hard to apply for state funds. If there's an easy, efficient way to get that lined up, then it's easier to bring more money in from other sources.
And I think the CPC group in general is in favor of
It makes their
allocating.
life easier.
But I think they're going to want to allocate whatever each year. It's not going to be a fixed amount.
Well, the bond has to be a fixed amount. by
No, I'm not
definition.
talking about the bond. The bond's a separate thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, they can't allocate future years.
They would
other
have
than
to
through a
do that
bond.
every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what we're going to ask them for two things. One, we need this budget, we need to find out, I looked up a few days ago, and the bonding rate right now for municipalities with our credit is about 4.5%. So we're going to have to go to, the
We have
trust.
bond counsel. Yeah.
Right, but the trust is going to go to CPC and say, we would like to bond a certain amount of this.
Right.
And so we need to, and that happens, Thursday will be in general, but by the 10th, we need to be more specific.
Yeah.
What's the total we would want to bond?
Well, that's why I was asking about how much of they would put. Look at there's other sources, this is, so this is a once in a generation wish list, if you will. Okay, it's like boilers that have been there since they were open, a roof that's been there since it opened, a driveway that has been there since it opened. These are all things that are going to take care of Pine Woods for the next 15, 20 years. So, we have the other options we could look at are, we could make a proposal that, to come up with $1 million. Let's say they could do 50. All right. Let's say that maybe we could ask the town, the select board, to designate 75 in the remaining 300,000 of ARPA money to this project. We could ask for 25,000 in general revenues a year that would go toward affordable housing or into this. And then we've got the ability to go to CPC. So we've got a number of different buckets that we could look at to try to kind of cobble together the total. I think that my sense is, a 20-year bond of around 50,000 a year when we're taking in right now, typically about 400,000 in total CPC revenues a year is pretty reasonable. So that would be slightly, when you factor out the interest, that's slightly less than 50 grand or around 50 grand a year. You know, for these once in a generation.
But the total size of the bond is what? Is
$1 million.
Is it the million?
Yes,
The
sir.
other thing
Okay.
I want to say is that once we can climb out of these capital needs, we have revisited our pro forma, and without these expenses, we will be sustainable, which is always the goal. So we don't anticipate, oh, now we need another roof we're going to come back to.
Yeah.
If we can climb out of this, we will be feeding our reserve, more generously.
Right.
And
That's
we'll be
good
able to
point.
do it, because that sustainability is important, obviously.
All right.
So what, we can't leave, this is our meeting. We've got another meeting, we hope, on January 30th. The proposal is due the 10th of February. And I think we don't want to just say, well, maybe we do this or that or the other. We've got $1 million, $1,062,000 on the table.
Right.
Of requests from you.
Right, and we don't want to compete with you, so we don't want to go to the CPC,
Right.
and ask for the same thing, so.
Well, no,
we
we're
wanna
going
sup-
together.
Right, we'd want to support your application.
So we got a short time frame for a fairly complex thing that we want to do.
Right.
And I don't know who in the building here knows the steps of, you got to do this, and this to get a formal proposal to say we're going to bond it.
I'm on the CBC, yeah.
Right, and-
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, basically, I think
I'm
that.
looking in your direction. That's-
What?
I'm looking in your direction.
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean,
Karen Wolf has written many of these. She would be, I am happy to volunteer her to
Have
do
you
like
ever
work on ours.
bonded any CPC monies in any other town?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So you don't have any experience?
And this isn't
either.
really a Berkshire thing, but it's very common. We had Stuart Sagnor who's the CPC executive director of the CPC Foundation. And he was saying this was a standard, most towns do this because it's the only way, it's like these numbers are too big. Well, why front load something that's basically a capital investment? It's like buying a house, it's like
we need an investment bank to say, yes, we can
Yeah.
underwrite your,
yeah, we have bond,
The town has bond.
we already have bond counsel on all the regular bonds the town does.
And I followed up to that meeting with, what's his first name?
Stuart.
Stewart. And there's a whole thing, if you want to educate yourself about bonding, go on their coalition website, and there's a 30-minute or little,
Which website is it?
Webinar.
it's the Coalition for Community Preservation. Community Preservation Committees.
CPC, yep.
Yeah, it's
oh, okay.
a statewide
Oh, it's the
coalition.
CPC thing. then, okay.
Yes, and they have.
Little tutorial there?
They have a tutorial about how to bond and why it works, and there's a lot of information there. And we have our own bond counsel at the town. But the decision here, I think, is to look at the $1 million with you and say, can you commit $100,000 to that amount?
I can't personally do that. I would have to go to my board of directors.
Okay. Would
I
you be
thought you
able
said they would only go for 50.
Well, that's what
never know.
out of our reserves, that's what
Would you like that 95,000 in the reserve account?
let me, I can't say what my board will do.
Of course not.
That's
Right.
not
Right.
appropriate, but I can say that I think they would approve up to the 50,000 from reserves. And I think with our development committee from Construct, we could see our way through to at least raising the additional 50,000. I think we could do more, but
All right.
I am not speaking.
'Cause I would
for
love
them.
to
Let me
be-
be very clear.
I'd love to get below the $1 million figure.
We need a
I would
motion or something.
below million. Yep,
Because that leaves us some room for interest. So I think that we should.
Yes, we will.
yep.
I think we should entertain a motion that we would propose to CPC that CPC bond on this total list, 962,600 of it, and require Construct to come up with
I think
100,000.
That's
And then-
appropriate for you to say, we will do this, but you got to do this.
Yeah,
You
right,
can- You
right.
can
So that
tell us.
basically says you got to come up with 100, you got
Yeah,
to
I
skin the
think
game.
that's a great idea.
And then if they can, they can. If they can't, they can't. And CPC also doesn't want to fund 100%. They want to see that there's some
Right.
money in it from other
Right.
sources.
Because you do own it, we don't.
Right, absolutely.
And so it seems very appropriate. The other thing that we talked about, and I don't want to have that extended conversation, but there's some possibility that there's some more tax credit. There's other ways to raise money.
We're not, by the time we do.
Yeah, I mean, not in a timely fashion is the short answer for that.
Right, but it doesn't mean after this is done, there's going to be some more things.
We have been advised that unless we're able to bring that property up to the 45 unit number that is now required for low income tax credits, we would not be eligible.
Right.
So,
Well, that was the
and we did a
conversation we had 2
feasibility
years ago.
study that we had a feasibility study funded by CPC last year or the year
Yeah.
before. And we don't see how it's feasible to put another 15 units on that property.
Right. High rise in the middle?
Okay.
I mean, quality of life is part of it, you know.
So I think we should
Jetsons, you
entertain
know.
a motion here
Yes.
that our trust present to CPC a request that they bond sufficient funds to produce 962,000, or let's just not.
Does the CPC issue the bond or? do we-
Yes.
Yeah, and the CPC the bond has to go through CPC.
Okay.
So we're basically saying that, that we'll manage this. And obviously the disbursements only happen as
As needed.
reimbursements.
Yeah, they're
You know,
reimbursements, yeah.
You know, so it's not like we're handing over $1 million of
Well,
anybody's money. It's
and that's the
just-
other reason that we need to keep some reserves because we have to pay it up front and then get paid back.
Right. So, but, my sense is that, I just think as a town, we're going to get away from deferred maintenance. And this is, we should just kind of bite the bullet.
I
and do
think
it.
it's a very important step forward for this group to step up and say, this is our most important affordable housing unit.
Well, second most, so, depends on who you're asking.
Well, along with, yes, Andrea and Jim,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you didn't let me finish. Most important, that's in the worst condition, because thank goodness for Andrea and Jim, because you are in terrific shape. And we know you want some money.
We'll trade you.
That's right. We know you want some money from us, and we aren't forgetting you, but I think you
We
understand.
do, but
do.
it's, that's a nice compliment. We do try to pay attention to our infrastructure as much as we can. So, yeah, thanks.
So, but you're next, once this gets solved.
So Randy, I
Yes.
have one question before we get to a vote on all of this, which is, let's say that we move forward with the bonding and so on. How does the process work for putting these out to bid? Who's going to control the money and dispense it once we get the bond proceeds?
We have a process of anything over $10,000, we put out to at least 3 bids. It's not owned by the town, so we don't have to go through that kind of RFP process, which is
Good.
it's better. And we get it done in a timely fashion and we submit the bill.
Okay, so would it also be that you would share those bids with us and the information about what you're requesting for the quality of the work being done and so on, so we can?
That's not a level of scrutiny we've been asked to do.
But we could condition.
You can ask for whatever you want.
The question is how much of our volunteer time do we want to spend overseeing procurement?
Right.
If somebody on this board or the CPC wants to, micromanage roofing contractors, seriously,
I'm not suggesting, Patrick, that we micromanage things.
Yeah.
No, I know you're not, but I'm just saying.
You have relationships with people anyway, and
We do, with contractors, yeah.
in a history and who has.
Yep.
So does the town retain the funds and write the checks to you?
The town retains the funds we submit for reimbursement.
CPC's only reimburse actual expenses that are spent.
Yep.
Right.
But there's a big advantage to their procuring, because Andrea can tell everybody how difficult it is for them, because they have to go through all the state hoops.
Right.
And Construct does not have to do
Right,
that.
right.
They have their own responsible process.
You use mass buys, Andrea?
Andrea?
Without combis,
Combuys, right. That's what-
combis.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
a lot of fun, it's a lot of steps.
And I think that what Jan is suggesting is that there has never been a group that's focused on affordable housing before in the town, except for CPC. And this is a big project.
Absolutely, and we want to
would
be
like-
accountable to you, for sure.
We would like, I know, I think I speak for everybody on the trust. This is a big accomplishment that we would like to
Absolutely.
go
Do
hand
together.
in hand with you.
Absolutely, we would too.
And a part of this that isn't on your list, which this is my hobby horse, which you're going to hear about a lot, is that I think that we need to, as we go along, see if there's a way to improve the general
I agree, absolutely.
appearance of the project, because there are a lot of things, and some of it, I happened to notice, I did a two-time drive around the circle, and there are an awful lot of untidy people. We're landlords, so people shouldn't be able to just put their empty cans everywhere, it seems to me, because it's a community.
The design of the place invites a kind of an eyesore drive around the driveway there because of those open garages and empty spaces. and-
Carport type things.
Yeah, they tend to get,
People sometimes acquire more than they can really manage in their apartment.
God, it's the American phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why there's storage units every 3 blocks.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So do we need?
But I do think, that goes hand in hand with beautifying the property. When people live somewhere where they see that it's being taken care of by us, then they're more willing to take care of their part.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's.
Not everybody, but the vast majority. And then the peer pressure kicks in, which is
That's
also a good thing.
Right. I was thinking of a more attractive fence around the garden as another
Yep, that's out of,
possibility.
yeah.
But Jen, you have anything else before we seek a motion?
No, that's fine.
The other thing in terms of procurement, all of the expenses are based on a capital needs assessment that was done by, a reputable company. And so the numbers don't come from just nowhere. So,
Well, I think this
so
is
not to exceed, that.
actually a very important document. that should
Absolutely.
Be part of your proposal.
Okay.
So when I
Who
say
are we
your
doing a proposal to?
CPC.
Then we're competing with you.
No, you're not.
I'm confused
She
though.
means together,
Okay.
in
No,
collaboration,
that
we would go forward.
Right.
We use it in
your information.
the application.
Yes, I
Well-
mean, we will be there supporting your application, but its construct, the money's not going to flow through us.
Okay, I misunderstood that then. I thought the idea was to have it to come to the Affordable Housing Trust.
That's a second,
Okay,
you are independent. This money has to be bonded by CPC.
Okay.
And flow.
I don't know what the mechanism is, whether it could flow through us, but regardless, I think that we should endorse the concept and figure out, whose name is, whether one or the other organization is on the.
Currently, the way it's done, because I went and looked at all the records for CPC and how they did things. Right now, they appropriate X funds and you have, there's a line item that says driveway, Pine Woods driveway.
Right.
$150,000.
right, of course,
And then you send a bill to
right.
the town.
But there wasn't an Affordable Housing
Right,
Trust to go to at
Right,
that point.
but I don't think that this bond can and should go through us. It's going to have to go through CPC.
Let me check with Donna and Michael tomorrow.
Well, and we'll be at the meeting on Thursday, so
Yeah.
maybe those are questions we can ask.
Yep.
Right.
So we're going to check on the best mechanism.
Yeah.
But I think that however technically it's done, it's a partnership in
Right.
which we're supporting this effort.
This need, yep,
This need right here.
Yep.
And that we are going with you. Now, separate from that, we're going to ask for anything left over to come to us.
Great.
And that would go for other things that we think are.
Right.
Right, I think that's a great idea.
So there's two.
So maybe it does come through us.
Well, and the other great thing about bonding it is then we don't have to come back to you next year and say, well, now we need two more boilers. So it gets us off the table.
So could we have a motion? Who would like to?
All right, I got something here. I'm sure we'll have to tweak the language, but I move that the Affordable Housing Trust request the CPC to issue bonds for $960,000 for the renovation of Pine Woods,
Capital needs of Pinewoods.
capital needs for Pine Woods to be funded by annual CPC grants over a period of 15 years.
Well, actually,
No.
it's funded by the bond.
Funded by a bond.
What, read it again?
Well, I was thinking of you issue the bond and then the bond needs to be paid off. So
No, the
No.
bond is automatically paid off over the life of the bond.
That's, the bond is
they're
going to,
taking on the responsibility then of paying it off.
right,
yeah.
yeah, not us. It's going to be, the bond is going to produce $960,000 that's going to go into, it's going to have to go into a separate account for which these bills will be paid.
So the CPC then services that bond. They don't hand us money every year that we pay the bond off.
No.
They-
No.
Oh,
They're the
I
issuer.
thought that was the way it was too.
They're the issuer.
We're
and they
borrowing
would-
against future CPC revenues.
Okay.
So that's why it's low risk, because the town's in CPC already, so you know the money's coming in.
And how much is available each year for the CPC funding to go
I think
towards
around
housing?
400,000,
Towards housing?
150,000.
400,000.
Okay, so this wouldn't wipe everything out.
Oh, no, this would
No.
take about 50 grand.
Okay.
So somewhere between another $50,000 to $100,000
And remember, like,
should be available to us for other affordable
Okay.
housing.
there's only 3 CPC buckets: open space, affordable housing, and historic preservation. So a third of each one of those is around 130 grand. I mean, this is well below,
Yeah,
yeah.
So we're not wiping out.
all right.
Anything.
What would we do for the next 10 years?
What was the guy's name?
I gave up.
Bill Nicholson. What was the guy's name who was like the junk bond guy?
Oh,
Way
yeah.
back when? Oh, yeah. No, we're not him.
We're going to have to,
Well, he has to actually give the motion.
Let's try this again. Let me,
all right, we're going to try again.
Slowly.
I'm not sure I read my scribbling. Okay,
But you can give it to Liz later.
move that the Affordable Housing Trust request the CPC to issue 15-year bonds totaling $960,000 for the capital needs of Pine Woods.
Perfect.
Second.
Get a second?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Actually, on this one, let's do a roll call, because
Yeah,
technically, since one of our members is on remote, we're supposed to roll call it.
Okay.
So I, Patrick.
Aye, Randy.
Aye, Liz.
hi, Don.
Hi, Mark.
I'm Michaela.
Hi, Jan.
All right, so it's
All right,
7-0.
there we go.
Thank you very much.
7-0.
So we will
All right.
get to work on this.
I would like to,
Yeah, so
before we
I'll
lose
work with
you,
you on the
That'd be great.
CPC stuff, if you want to.
And it'll be mainly June and Sam.
Okay, all right.
for the rest of the trust, just sit down for one more second. You're not done. You're going to change it.
Take my money and run.
Take your money and run.
Change your mind.
Promise of
We might change our mind. Please make sure you take these documents, which are the budget which is what their P and L.
When I send it electronically to town administrator so it can get sent out, and the P and L is on the second page.
Second tab.
But
Yep.
essentially, they have about $330,000 of income. Do you expect that, this is we don't have history here. So has that been going up or is that?
The last 2 years, yes, it's been
Hopefully
going
not
up
too
because
much.
rents
It's affordable housing.
do go up a little bit, as the allowable rent goes up. But without turnover, we don't tend to raise it as much. We tend to raise rents at turnover. The other thing is that.
What about Section 8?
Let me finish.
Sorry.
The arrears have been much higher since COVID hit. So folks are struggling, and since inflation hit, and since cost of, everything has hit. So we definitely are having more people who are behind in rent than we normally do. We're working with them. We've got payment plans. We're trying to get them all the assistance they can. But that means we're carrying a little bit more.
Is that what
debt.
vacancy loss is?
Vacancy loss just refers to the amount, help for a
Turnover?
it being, turnover. But we did elevate it because of the arrears also, because of the additional costs.
You don't have a line item for arrears then?
Not in that budget, we try to keep like that, the actual operating budget, the really big pots of money within our detail. When our finance committee goes through it all, that's broken out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maintenance looks, like $100,000 in maintenance.
Well, you've seen the place.
Yes. I mean, that's,
Hopefully that'll go down though. That's what we were talking about.
Exactly.
I mean, that should go down, but
That
that
should, but that covers some of the more incidental things that we're not asking you
happen,
for. Yeah.
that happen.
And that's the labor affiliated with that as well, right?
Correct. So that's materials, our own labor, and then contractors.
I saw you fix the door on the shed, which
dinner
is
dinner.
really nice.
Yes.
Looks very good.
We are fixing things. It may not look like it, but we really are.
That is terrific. And I think we really should start now that we have this, well, once this is over, to see how we can help you on beautifying, shall we call it.
Yeah, I think we could do a really nice,
I was wondering if
Series of things.
UMass has that agriculture school and they have a big landscaping part of it. I wonder if any of them
That would be great. Well,
take on a project
yeah, and.
in the real world, you know?
Right, and we do, the board member who's a master gardener is also teaching in the master gardener program here, so she has interns who help us as well.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's been a really big.
These are mostly plants that grow in wetlands that we're looking for.
Patrick is trying to be.
On a lily
Yeah.
pond.
All right. All right.
Are we done?
I could tell you
Yes,
more
we're gonna
stories,
let
but
you,
you don't want to
go.
hear.
You're worried about getting out of here.
I'm not worried.
Not you.
You guys are much more
I
fun.
have another meeting at 6:30.
So-
Oh, right.
She wants to throw us out. All right.
Cut the
Okay,
jokes.
we have a lot of items to cover here.
Jane,
Let's
thank
see
you.
how-
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
Yes.
good work, bravo. You're doing a lot in a short period of time.
All right.
Okay, moving right down here. Patrick White, do you want to talk about any other things
No,
about
I'm done.
CPC? You're done.
I've talked enough.
Okay, but Jan, I know you have a big project, and I would like to ask Michaela if you would join Jan in this effort, because it's our next big thing we need to get done.
So I think the question is, as I mentioned in our last meeting, Williamstown did a housing assessment report rather than a housing production plan. And that, the Williamstown report was about $15,000 and went through the regional planning board. And while all of us have kind of some information about kind of what our housing inventory is, we don't really have a lot of facts behind that. So I think it might be a very good thing if we went ahead and did a housing assessment. The one in Williamstown looked at not only affordable housing, but senior housing and workforce housing and handicapped housing and so on, and provided a lot of information about what the housing situation was in the community. And so if we would agree to move forward with that, I think it might be a very good information source for us for any future projects that we might want to undertake.
Well, the big thing is, I think we all agree we need this. Is there anyone?
Yeah, I just wonder what the mechanics of gathering that information.
Yeah, do you have a framework for that from them?
So if my understanding is if we go to the regional planning group, they not only have access to funding, potential funding for it, but they also have planners on site that do the actual work for a lot of that. So we would be contacting them and engaging them to do the study. They have access to all of the databases and so on that you would need to come up with that information. And I know a couple of the planners left. I don't know if the ones who left are the same ones who did the Williamstown study, but if the two that did that study are still there, I would really encourage us to try to use them because I thought it was a good study. I sent it all to you after our last meeting. I don't know if you've had a chance to read over that and look at it, but I thought it was worthwhile.
Was it on the town email that you sent it?
No, I sent it, I think I sent it on both the town and your individual emails. And Michaela, I don't know that I sent yours because I didn't have your email at the
No,
time.
I don't think so, but I would love to see it when I can.
I
That'd be
can send it again.
Thank you.
I don't mean to shout any rain on this, but there's several differences of opinion about the work of BR whatever it is, another alphabet soup, but the regional planning people. I just would ask both of you to see what other options there are so that we need to think, be careful, I think, in who we ask to do this and whether we can get a thorough study. I know you're enthusiastic about the Williamstown one. I would just encourage you to make sure that whoever, if we decide to go, and perhaps you could come back with your recommendation on the 30th, on our 30th meeting. Is that too soon to?
Well, I think we could do that. I'd like to hear more about what the concerns are that have been voiced about.
I think if you, one person is Michael Canales, our town administrator. You should talk with him.
Okay, I will.
And see what he says. And also maybe Mary Beth, because Lennox has done its own.
Right.
Now, they did a full housing production 5 years ago.
Right.
Because they really, and they have produced a pretty big project, the 65 units in that 5 years as a result of that study. But anyway, I'm sure Mary Beth might also be a good resource.
Okay.
And
Well, I think one question for all of us is, we could decide to do a housing production plan, but we are over the threshold. And the main difference between the housing assessment and the housing production plan is the housing production plan activity, which would be more expensive to do, quite a bit more expensive to do, but that involves a lot of interaction for the community in presenting, because it tries to identify the strategies going forward to add more housing, which is the housing production part of it. And so so it has a lot of setting up for public discussion, taking in comments so that you can include all of those in the preparation of a housing production plan, which includes the plan going forward, as opposed to simply a housing assessment, which doesn't really have any of the strategy or plan about what to address and how to move forward.
But Jan, I will just point out that the community involvement, we understand that the consulting cost goes up when you do one that involves the community, but that is helpful in building consensus as to what a plan should be, obviously. And I will also point out that we did appropriate $50,000 from ARPA already to pay for this. So having other sources, it would be nice. We could use the ARPA money for something else. We could use it to, fix something or whatever. But I mean, not saying us, we'd have to reappropriate from the select board, but we do have $50,000 to spend on a comprehensive plan that gets some public input. And that was priced based on going through a more extensive process. So, I'll just leave that out there. I'm not going to oppose, if you just want to do a housing, study and save some money, that's fine. But,
Well, what I'm wondering, Patrick, is if we couldn't do this in two steps, because doing the housing assessment first doesn't preclude doing the other steps later. And you might, we might be able to talk to one of the consulting firms that does housing production plans as well as the housing assessment, and do it in a two-step process. So we can evaluate whether we need to do the production planning part of it, depending on what comes out of the housing assessment.
yeah, I mean,
But if you in general all feel that we should do the whole housing production plan from the get-go, I'm not opposed to that at all.
I personally am much in favor of a two-step process. I think we are going to have to go out to the community to build support once we reach the point that we think we'd like to embark on a project, an actual new construction or a new project of some sort. Because there are other things that we also may want to consider, such as a deposit, a mortgage deposit program, this there are a lot of other individual things that we may want to do, like individual houses, the way Lennox did, if that appears before us. And we may want to build support for whatever comes before us. Plus, right now, we're very active on Pine Woods, but I think we do not want to forget our friends who are sitting up there, that Heaton Court also could use similar support. I assume that you would agree with that, Andrea and Jim. And we would like to turn our attention to that fairly soon.
All right. I just feel like the housing production plan, all those items that you just listed really fall under affordable housing categories. Housing production plan, as I understand it, can expand beyond that and look at ways to ensure that that home ownership is possible in the town. Like, do we need zoning changes? Do we need to enable accessory dwelling units that are in line with the square footage that the state allows, 800 square feet versus the 500 square feet we have now? Do we want to look at strategies on home affordability that is not just affordable housing? And I think that's what, and if you build that entire conversation into a conversation with the town, it's not just about affordable housing, it's about how can residents afford to live here. And I think that's a really important conversation that I think belongs with this group. And if a report included those broader themes, I personally think it would be very helpful to foster a conversation around those themes. I don't know what the answers are to all those right yet, but I think we all know that, just look around. We got 3 kids in the 4th grade. I mean, these are real issues,
Speaking of that, we learned.
Well, we have 25 kids out of the kids in our school system. 25 of them live at Pine Woods.
Yeah.
25 out, I think it's 117. 107 or 107.
It's 113 this year.
113 in the school system.
Yeah.
That's.
And 25 live at Pine.
5 in the 1st grade, 3 in the 4th grade. There's 61 kids from Stockbridge in 7 through 12 and 36 kids from Stockbridge in 1 through 6. That kind of tells the story right there, and there's a lot of ways to improve home affordability. Some of them are more controversial than others, I will point out. But nevertheless, I think that we should be having these conversations as a town.
Absolutely.
And that's why I was thinking kind of a plan that was more comprehensive. That's why we funded it anyway.
Well, it also seems reasonable to me to gather the information and then embark on strategies to use this information.
Sure, but the consultant will help us gather it as part of the project. The consultant will manage the community outreach. I mean, we did this with MVP. We did the senior housing study as part of MVP, and the consultants, the BSC group, were fantastic. They basically held our hands through every step of writing the municipal vulnerabilities plan, which is like an 80-page plan, but.
What is all that you just said? That you spoke in,
MVP.
alphabet soup?
So last 2 years ago, we got a state grant to a municipal vulnerabilities program, which is
the
for climate
vulnerability
change.
study.
But we added a resilient housing component of that. So we got an extra 15 grand from the state to do a study for resilient housing. And that study is on the shelf now. We have it. And I'm just saying the process was that we hired a group that specialized in this kind of plan, the BSC group in this case, from a list of approved vendors that the state had. We hired them, and they did a fantastic job at managing a process to get and writing the plan.
Now, what has happened as a result of that work?
Well, we started this group. Seriously, I mean, that was like one of the things I called for. Yeah.
Okay. I guess.
We don't have to do it that way. Look, this is your project, and I personally I'm just giving you a little context, but I'll support whatever you decide to do and come up with.
Well, I'd like to hear from a couple other members about what your take is on it, whether doing a 1-step or a 2-step process, because I'm not opposed to doing it all at one time, particularly if we have the funding to do it.
I guess I would ask or put it out here. So what's going to be different now if we do the 2nd step, the production part of it as well? Is anything going to be different if we do it 2 years from now? In other words, what's the gain to pay them now or pay them later, to do it now or do it later?
It will take longer to come up with this housing is what will happen if we wait another 2 years to do that.
Yeah.
But it seems like our plate's pretty full right now with Pine Woods and Heaton Court. And that's going to take up a lot of our resources for the next year or two.
Well, don't we have the $50,000 grant just for that?
Yeah, and like I said, it's not just about expanding, if we even want to, afford the number of affordable housing units. It's about coming up with a housing plan for the town that takes into account a wide range of inputs into what our
Needs.
what the town's needs are.
I guess I don't know enough about, Jan, but the difference between a housing assessment study and a housing production study to be able to weigh in on which one to do in which order, whether to do both.
Well, my understanding is that the housing assessment really just looks at what is the housing inventory you have and different takes on it in terms of where are their shortfalls, where are their strengths, and tries to, spell that out for you. So you have a pretty good idea of what your housing inventory looks like right now. It does not do anything which says, okay, well, you're really short on this and you need to add more of these units, or you need to really develop the strategy. The housing production plan would do not only the first, but would also, as Patrick said, work with developing with us in developing what that strategy might look like, and then also engaging with the community. So we have lots of input, 2 or 3 kind of public hearings where some ideas would be presented. The consultants would take an active role in presenting that, as well as discussing the pros and cons of that, so that would inform our group about whether we want to change the strategy, move it around, whatever, with the input from the community. So a lot of the additional expense of doing the housing production plan is all about that, developing the strategy, getting community involvement in the strategy, and then moving forward.
Okay.
I think we could do it in 2 steps, but not maybe 2 years apart, but do the first part now, take a look at that, and then have the second part to do within the next year to do the housing production plan.
You think the cost, is there some cost savings by combining the 2 at the same time? Is there a $25,000 penalty for delaying the other one for a year?
That's a good question for the
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And it may be a little bit more expensive to do it in 2 steps. So we can decide to do it all at one time.
Randy, do you see it as being biting off more than we can chew right now? Is that what we're thinking?
First of all, I think.
We're not doing it, they are, right?
Right, I mean, we have the funds, and it isn't work that we individually are going to do. We're going to hire professionals. I see it, I guess, as information that's missing. It's all here somewhere. It's a matter of collating it and in presenting it in a coherent fashion. But I see the second phase, what they call production, as community outreach, because I think what happens then is they take this needs part of it, or the numbers, how many people, what incomes. Most of this stuff is going to be.
A lot of census data on this,
right? And most of it's going to be pretty obvious to us. We probably could sit down right here and go through and be fairly close, not precise, but close. The second piece of it is probably the most critical, but it's how do we build a following, if you will, support and not in my backyard, it's going to come roaring right up against us.
I think one way that we'll get people to come out would be to have a consultant come out. And then we'd get a lot of people coming here to protest the idea of it, no matter what it is, you know. That's the only reason that some may come. So I think I'm on your page a little bit now.
We did, the town did a study, how many years ago, 8, 10 years ago, where they invited the gym was filled with tables and lots and hundreds of people came. And
For affordable housing?
for doing a study, something like this. And it was,
Visioning thing.
right, and everybody, you worked in groups, you
Yeah.
talked about certain subjects, and it brought the town together to talk about the things that they weren't thinking about. And it really opened our, a lot of eyes, because, I brought my daughter, and she was just old enough to do it at the time. And it was very interesting, and I don't remember the results of any of it, because life
It's on
was
it's a
busy.
visioning plan. It's on the website.
But yeah, it was pretty amazing. And
Did
it does
it
get
result
everybody behind
in,
you.
what would you say was the product of it?
We had a good vision. I don't know. I haven't read it in a year or two, but yeah, it just tries to build consensus around the direction the town's going to go. You know?
Which is what we're.
And some of these are complex issues. You got tax issues, you got zoning issues, you got, there's a lot of moving parts to what a strategy might entail. And there's no one right answer. There's often many right answers, but people got to talk about it and buy into it, or else you don't really get anywhere.
So do people think that this is one of our goals, is to really get a dialogue going in the community about how to produce housing that has a broader range of affordability?
If you want their votes.
I think we need to gain support.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I run into a lot of people who conceptually like the idea of increasing housing opportunities for younger people, for families, workforce housing, getting kids in town. But then the next step of, okay, how do you do that? What zoning do you change? Where's that housing going?
Ultimately, I think they have to understand how it affects them in a positive way. I mean, ultimately, that's what everyone wants, is to figure out, how does it affect me, either negatively or positively, right? And I thought, was it June that was here last time? I thought her conversation was so eye-opening in terms of when she was talking about, was it Tyringham or Monterey? Monterey not having any fire, anyone to volunteer for the fire department or those are major, major issues that you actually don't even think about. I went home to my husband and said that. He said, oh my God, I never.
They have the same problem here.
Our average age is what, 65,
Right,
67?
and I think that that's really important to say, like, here's the trick, hate to use this, but here's the trickle down effect of what that means for you in your life.
Right. You really want your firefighters driving 20 minutes to get to a fire.
Right.
Rather than,
Well,
hearing
it's
the
also
sound of
the-
the bell and
EMTs
interrupt.
The future leadership of the town. I mean, the people,
Right.
if you were a baseball team, you'd want a good minor league team coming up.
And we've got about 120 people who serve on committees. Okay, just right there, you go down that list and look at how many of us are in our 60s or 70s or 80s.
And a lot of repeats.
There's a lot of us. Having a farm team is actually really a great point as well.
Thing is, it's, almost anywhere you put something, well, I don't know if this will be true. If there's individual places we can pick off, I go around town and I see these houses that are abandoned. There's one on Castle Hill Road. It's a ranch. It's been sitting there for decades, I think, or many, many years anyway. I walk by it a lot. And I don't even know who owns it, what's going on there, but.
Is that the one that we auctioned off?
Good house for a family with probably 2-3 bedrooms in there. And there it is. It just stays there. And I think there's probably some of those properties around, and maybe we can pick off some of those. I don't know whether some grand scheme of developing 10 or 15 units of housing like Brushwood or something like that is within our capability.
But that does seem that this production study would assess all of that and give us some recommendations.
And that's where receivership comes in for houses that you're talking about. So when we do our little windshield study, we can go, aha, and I'll go with you and I'll show you who owns it.
Oh, you got the little magic wand there? You
He
can.
does.
I
He
do.
actually
It's on my
does.
phone.
I would just point out that Pine Woods is, everybody at Pine Woods pays rent. They work, they pay rent. These are basically middle class, sometimes lower middle class. A lot of times they're single parent families who there's no rent free at a place like Pine Woods. These are working class people. These are workforce people. It's not like, sometimes people I don't think understand that these are just regular folks who work a job but it's the kind of job that pays 45, not 105,
Well, I think the overarching problem is that housing has reached the point where it's out of reach for many people making a normal living. We have to have health insurance to cover our health. We need scholarships and loans to cover college. These big expenses, anything that an American touches, housing, healthcare, education, those are all services that Americans, the Chinese can't build all of that stuff. And anything that an American touches is through the roof, all of that stuff. And housing has reached the point where a normal household cannot afford housing. And we've got to sort of come to grips with that as a society, that we are going to have to put much more into helping people have housing, because the marketplace is going to build $500,000 places at a minimum, and people can't afford $500,000 places. And I don't know, how you bend that marketplace to get to where you need to go, but that's the challenge that we've got.
But today, the way it's happening is with this alphabet soup of layers and layers of financing and loans and tax credits. And it's very, very complex to get what Mary Beth was saying. We found the land, we found the developer, we've gotten the approvals, we have the design, we got the neighbors in tow. Hello.
But another thing,
We don't have the money. Well, and also it's just the price of everything that you need to build that house has gone up exponentially in the last 5-10 years, and especially in the last 3.
but one of the other things we need to put on the list was, you heard her say that the developer, because of the zoning requirements in Lennox, is paying them $475,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to develop a property. That is a Lennox bylaw that many local towns have that we don't. We don't require a contribution to affordable housing. So, for example, you just probably read in the paper that Encore just got sold. We have the perennial debate over what to do at 37 Interlaken. Well, right now, those developers can build and not support the efforts of a group like this, because we don't have a bylaw that does it. And these are the kinds of, I'm not saying we should, that raises the cost of the luxury housing that they'd be building. But, I am suggesting that it should be part of a conversation that we have as a town to weigh the plus and minus of the various strategies that we have.
Well, that's the kind of mechanism for trying to connect the marketplace ridiculous cost of housing with the much smaller ability of people to pay. You've got to go to the wells that have the money in it and pull that money out and get it into the people. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we move forward with trying to do a full housing production plan study. And that I don't think we'll be able to report at the next meeting, Randy, about exactly who might do that and move forward. But I think we can give you an update on where we are. And Michaela and I can go and do some homework about various consultants and who might be the best one to use, and talk with some of our neighboring towns about who they've used and the pluses and minuses.
Yeah. Jan, did you get any sense of the Williamstown, the cost of the one they did in Williamstown? Did that come up at all?
Well, the Williamstown one was a housing assessment, and that was $15,000. I think the one that Lennox did was closer to 75. I don't have my notes right with me, but theirs is about 75,000, I think.
They're kind of bigger than we are. Would that make any difference?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because it's mostly about, the time for them to do the whole plan. So,
But a biggest piece of it, if in fact, one of the issues is nomenclature, what you call what we're going to do. And number one, we need the information. So to me, that gathering that information in some sort of cohesive, easy to understand way is step one. And then taking that information and saying, what are the options for implementing these needs that have been identified? And then the big part, and I think the expensive part, is when you start doing the outreach to the community. And so it's really almost a 3-part activity, because you have to get the information, then we have to digest it and work with the consultants to try to come up with some strategies or some ideas. Strategies is kind of a big word for what are the ideas? How are we going
What are
to?
the possibilities?
Yeah,
Possibilities, that's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What are the possibilities?
and so,
We may be able to structure it with a consultant to do it in phases. So we
Yeah.
commit to the first phase and then later we'll commit to the second phase and so on and so forth.
Well, that's
But I
nice.
think
If they know they've got the contract for the second part, maybe we can avoid an overcharge for breaking it up into two.
Right.
but in addition, not in addition, one of the most important things is when we start to reach out to the community with new ideas, because right now, we are cleaning up the past. Is what I see us doing is our main task. And as we get into cleaning up whatever needs to be done in the facilities that we have, then we could start to say, I met with the woman who runs the Red Lion Inn. They have enormous need for housing.
Yeah.
Think about all the
Yeah.
people that they can't open some of their dining rooms because they don't have enough staff.
There's no
That's
housing in
true.
South County.
That's true in every restaurant in Berkshire County.
Yeah.
They don't open for lunch because they don't have enough staff to staff both lunch and dinner. They don't open 7 days a week because they don't have enough just for the dinner people.
Yeah.
And people, I work in Lenox and I work next to Alta and there is no lunch there except
I
for 2
know,
months in the summer.
Yeah.
And that was my business.
Yeah.
They were coming for lunch. I was there during the day,
Right.
dead.
Yeah.
Well, since we have a pressure from one of our esteemed members to get out of here.
I can't leave now. I'm trapped.
Is there anything about, did Jim want to say anything or Andrea?
Andrew, Jim, would you like to, let me just quickly look at our agenda. I think we've talked about everything
Except the last thing.
except,
D.
what?
Dunedin Heating Court.
Oh, Don, Don, do you have anything you want to bring up and then,
Well,
Andrea?
just to be, an advocate for Heaton Court and to, I guess maybe you can go ahead and explain what you did on the deed search better than I can.
Are we unmuted?
We are unmuted.
Okay, so we did get the findings of the deed restriction and it was the corner lot with the trees. So I'm waiting to have my next board meeting because they'd like to take a look at the rest of the property if you want to see if it is buildable. So I have to check with the board to see if anybody is even interested in building anything anywhere else on the property. So that's what we've done there.
So you cannot put any more building up where all the trees are. Is that correct?
On the corner lot.
That is the piece of land that is deed restricted. Now, from my perspective, when I first got here, there was a giant tree that fell down and the town took it away. And it was one of those trees because it's like 3 feet around. And those trees are dead there, but
The trees are
they're in a
dead.
deed restriction.
There was all because of 2 trees that the deed restricted.
Really
Because of
big
2
trees.
2 really big trees. And we're not sure. One of them is probably gone at this point.
Okay.
Well, whether you had a deed restriction or not, I think it would be a serious conversation of whether it's appropriate for the town to clear that parcel and put a building there.
Yes.
Whether there's a deed restriction or not, but for right now, you believe there's a deed restriction. Is that right, Andrea?
There is, yes.
Okay.
So that's that. And I gave Don a list. I don't know if you were able to check your town email of our wish list here at Heaton Court prioritized.
So I didn't see that. I didn't.
Neither.
We haven't
It was
seen.
after our conversation yesterday.
Yesterday? Okay.
We put that on the top of the agenda for the 30th, just so that we
Yes,
can not make them wait 2 hours again.
Yes, how much, just a quick bottom line, how much money do you want?
I can get that ready for the 30th.
Okay.
I just gave him a list.
Are you
but I
gonna
will
come-
get that ready for the 30th.
But what about coming, you want CPC, right? Money?
So this year for the CPC, I was going to ask for, I don't know, anywhere between 17,500 to 20,000 for additional siding board for that project. And I'm hoping I can leverage the HILAP money like I did the last 2 years where they gave me $2.50 on the dollar. And I think that'll, finish up the project. I'll have like 300 and something thousand dollars. So that's what I was asking for this year.
From
I'm gonna get that ready from the
And then-
CPC, yes.
But then you want to ask for money directly from our funds? Is that, do I understand that correctly?
Well, I did come up with a wish list for Dawn and prioritized it, but I will go and I will get actual dollars for that. I have money already leveraged through my formula funding. So I will get some numbers for you.
Quickly, what kinds of things are they?
We have a parking lot project going on. I think I have about $102,000 from the state. I'm sure it's going to be more. We have the upper and lower lots. We'd like to make more parking spots. In that original plan, we had a lighting upgrade for the upper parking lot, and there's no money for it. So we need some tall pole lights up there. It's very dark. That was in there. What else did I put in there? We have a gutter project. I have about $9,200 put aside for it, like the helmets on the gutters.
Windows?
Yep. A couple of boilers that seem to be urgent. 2 buildings. At least we're doing a lot of repairs on them. Things like that.
Okay. Don, can you send that around?
Yeah. This is in addition to your CPC money, so that would be coming out of any money we have in the bank?
I don't know. Let's look at what it is.
We need
Talk about it
to,
next
yes. Terrific. Let's.
So that, I was just going to ask for the money for the siding to finish up that project for this year. And next year can be another
All right, but
year.
Okay, but you have the full list, right, that Don's asked for. Terrific.
I'll send it around.
Okay.
All right.
How about my handrails? That make it into anybody's wish?
That is all included in our siding project. We're gonna get to those. I think it's gonna go out to bid very soon, the end of February, beginning of March. I'm excited. I feel like it's been 2 years in the making.
Okay.
Granny's rails.
Granny's rails.
Granny's rails.
Terrific. Okay, can everybody come on January 30th and February 13th? And then I will put it on, we'll get it on the calendar.
Somebody order a suit after.
February 13th isn't going to work.
Not for you?
You can, I'm sure the meeting can go on
Can you be there by Zoom?
from Costa Rica.
That sounds like a no. That sounds like a no. All right.
You just have to watch the whole
Do you wanna-
2-hour meeting while you're there at night.
The 30th and what was the other day?
13th.
13th, let me just make sure
The
that
13th is should be a Monday, right?
What, yes, it
coming
is.
back to that.
What time are we doing
It's
these?
usually 5.
5?
Is it 5 or 6? 6.
What do we want? Choices are 4, 5, and 6. What's the?
Well, since our meetings go 2 hours, I think starting earlier is better if you can. Can everyone do that or
Yeah,
no?
4.
Can everybody do 4 o'clock?
That's a good time for me.
Yep, because we get too hungry.
Jan,
Yes, 4 o'clock is good.
it's good for you and those 2 dates are good. Did you find out, John?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't sure what time I'm coming back, but I believe I'm coming back. I wouldn't count on,
Have to do it with her.
Okay. So we might
but I'll
try to accommodate everybody, but
And that too is.
Costa Rica does have its calling. Okay. Anybody have anything else you want to put on the table? Been a great meeting.
Well, we have to
After
set up
lunch.
for planning.
Yes, so the CDC director, executive director,
Next meeting.
yes. Yes.
Well, Andrea, can you be present on the 30th?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I can.
Let's have Andrea and the CDC.
On the same day?
Can she? Yeah,
On the 30th of January, right?
yep.
Yes.
Considering we have everything to do for that application, do you really want to fill up with all this too? I think
Okay.
we've got a lot to do without getting
Okay.
a bunch of speakers. Let's kind of try and table
Spread it
some of
out.
this.
Well, Andrea, you're going forward on your own to CPC, right? Will you be there Thursday?
Yes,
Okay. So the 30th, the main focus is going to be what? Our,
CPC application.
CPC application.
who's going to write this?
That's a good.
We can do it.
You're volunteering. Okay, Patrick and Randy just got assigned to the CPC application, which means that we have to have it ready for your review on the 30th.
I mean,
All right.
technically, I'll help you write it. I'll help you.
Oh, thank you.
however I
Because he's
can.
on the.
I can't, bam, I'm on the CPC, so.
We want to sit with you so we can say it's the two of us and then, okay.
Terrific. Who would like, though, would anyone be willing to take over working with Mary Beth on our collaborative meeting with other, being our representative to pulling those our five things together, our five trusts together?
That's due in mid-March or,
End of February, March.
I mean, it's.
Okay,
due the-
well, I'll take that on.
Do you wanna
because
take
I
that
don't have
on?
an assignment
There
yet,
you
so.
go.
Okay, great. Mark takes it.
So getting the 5 affordable housing trusts together in one meeting?
I can give you the names of people. Jan has spoken to Williamstown and I've spoken to Williamstown. The only person, well, I'm trying to connect with the lady in Pittsfield.
You guys can deal with this directly, right?
Right.
Because we had a big.
Yeah, but we have to leave.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who made it? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.